Look, usually when we sit down to talk about a 1-1 draw away from home, especially in, February,
Hmm.
the vibe is pragmatic.
Yeah, you take the point and move on.
You take the point, you respect the difficulty, and you keep the tally moving.
Hmm.
But we were looking at the aftermath of Brentford 1, Arsenal 1 at the G-Tech. And I have to be honest, looking at the data, the mood,
Hmm.
this does not feel like a point gained.
It really doesn't. It feels like a puncture. You know that feeling when you're on the highway, smooth sailing, and you hit something? The car is still moving, you haven't crashed, but the handling just feels off. That's Arsenal right now.
That is the perfect analogy. Because on paper, a draw isn't a disaster. But we've gone through the match reports, the Opta data, the officiating analysis, and the press conferences. And the mission for this deep dive is to figure out if this is just a bump in the road, that puncture you mentioned,
Yeah.
or if the wheels are actually coming off the title charge.
And to really get why the mood is so heavy, you can't just look at the 90 minutes. Context is everything here.
Yeah.
If this result happens in October, nobody panics. But we are in the pressure cooker now.
The City factor.
The shadow that looms over everything.
Let's unpack that timeline, because it's actually kind of terrifying how fast things change in this league. 5 days ago, less than a week, Arsenal had a provisional 9-point lead.
9 points. That is a cushion. That is, start looking at hotel prices for the parade territory for the optimistic fans.
But then Manchester City does that thing they do. The machine just turns on. They beat Liverpool. Then, the night before this Brentford game, City absolutely dismantles Fulham 3-0.
So before the whistle even blows in West London, the psychology has completely shifted. That 9-point cushion, it's an illusion.
I'm gone.
The gap is effectively down to 1 point, assuming City wins their game in hand. So Arsenal isn't playing to extend a lead anymore. They're playing to restore it. And that is a completely different mental state.
It turns a football match into a bomb disposal operation. One wrong move, one slip wire, and boom! And they weren't walking into an easy venue, were they?
Not at all. They were walking into the G-Tech, which, under Keith Andrews, has become a legitimate fortress.
It really has. I was looking at the home form in our notes. Brentford had only lost 2 home league matches all season before this.
2! And they had just beaten Villa and Newcastle away. They weren't scraping points, they were flying.
There was also that bizarre bogey stat floating around. Did you see this one?
Oh, the sequence stat, yeah.
Apparently, Brentford only loses consecutive home league games if the sequence starts with Nottingham Forest and is followed by Arsenal.
Which sounds like absolute nonsense.
It sounds like astrology for men. But since they lost to Forest in late January, the superstition said Arsenal should win.
Well, statistics are great until kickoff, right? Once the team sheets came out, you realized pretty quickly history and superstition weren't going to help. They were walking wounded.
Let's dig into that.
Yeah.
Because the Saliba gap is something we've talked about all season, but here we really saw it manifest. William Saliba was out.
And that changes the entire geometry of the team. I pulled the numbers. Historically, Arsenal wins, about 70% of their games with Saliba starting?
Right.
Without him? That win probability drops to something closer to a coin flip.
Why is that difference so stark, though? Is it just that he's a good defender?
It's so much more than his individual quality. It's what he allows the rest of the team to do.
Yeah.
Saliba has this recovery pace and composure that lets Arsenal play a ridiculously high line. He compresses the pitch.
I see.
When he's not there, the whole team naturally drops 5-10 yards deeper because they're scared of the ball over the top.
So you replace him with Christian Mosquera. Now, Mosquera is a decent player, very physical, but
He's not Saliba. He's a different profile. He's chaos where Saliba is calm. He's reactive where Saliba's proactive. And it wasn't just the defense, was it?
No. No Kai Havertz due to a muscle issue, which means you lose that physical outlet. No Mikel Merino. And while Saka and Ødegaard were on the bench, they clearly weren't fit for a full 90.
That is massive. So Arteta starts Victor Gyökeres as the lone striker, which on paper looks fine. He's a goal machine.
But without Ødegaard feeding him, without Havertz doing the dirty work,
Yeah.
he just looked incredibly isolated.
And on the other side, Brentford is missing a few guys. Carvalho, Sade, but they have the man of the moment, Igor Thiago.
The Brazilian tank.
17 goals in 25 matches coming into this. And honestly, Keith Andrews' game plan was so obvious, it was almost insulting.
What? Just go long.
He looked at Arsenal's patched-up defense and said, we are going to bypass the midfield, we are going to hit it long to Thiago, and we are going to make this a wrestling match.
Which brings us to the first half. I watched this back so you, the listener, didn't have to. And if I had to describe it in one word, Gridlock.
That's generous. Tactical stalemate is the polite term. I mean, it was a grind.
The stats were incredible.
Weren't there only 4 shots total in the whole half?
4 total shots. That is the second lowest tally for a first half in the entire Premier League this season.
But Arsenal had the ball. The stats say 67% possession.
But it was the donut of doom. They were passing around the outside of Brentford's block center, back to fullback to midfielder, and back again.
Exactly. Nobody could pass through the block because Saka and Ødegaard weren't there to receive it in those little pockets. Brentford was perfectly happy to let them have it 40 yards from goal.
Possession without penetration.
The very definition of sterile domination.
There was one moment, though, that nearly gave every Arsenal fan a heart attack. The David Raya incident. 22nd minute.
Oh, man. Raya back at his old ground. The crowd is on his back every time he touches it. He tries to roll it out to Declan Rice, a simple ball, and he just fluffs it.
It looked like the pressure got to him.
It had to be nerves. He completely misjudged the weight. Jensen intercepts, feeds it to Thiago, and suddenly it's point blank. Raya makes the save, which is great for him, but the psychological damage was done.
It just signaled that Arsenal was jittery.
It showed the world they were rattled. And the game was physical. The referee, John Brooks, was handing out yellow cards like flyers. Genolt, Gabriel, Gyökeres, all booked early.
And that suits Brentford, doesn't it? They want a stop-start game. They want friction.
Friction is their friend. So going into halftime at 0-0, Arteta knows he has to gamble.
I can't wait.
Can't wait. He has to play his ace card.
So he does. Martin Ødegaard comes on at the break for Ebreki.
And the difference was instantaneous. It was like someone turned the lights on.
Right.
Suddenly the ball is moving faster, the angles are sharper. You could see Brentford's defenders having to think half a second faster, and that's when you create mistakes.
And it paid off in the 61st minute. But what's interesting is that the breakthrough didn't come from some complex move. It came from a moment of individual quality, from a defender.
Kiro Hincapie. He drifts wide from that left-back Scott and just whips in this absolute peach of a cross, deep, curling right into that corridor of uncertainty.
And Noni Madueke, who I feel has had a really tough season, attacks it beautifully.
It was a textbook header. Attacks the back post, climbs over his marker, heads it back across the goal, wrong-footed the keeper completely. 1-0 Arsenal.
And in that moment, the narrative was written, right? Champions grind out results. They weathered the storm.
Yep. The away end is going mental. You assume they are going to shut up shop and take the 3 points home.
You assume. But this is where the Saliba gap stops being a statistic and starts being a reality. Because instead of controlling the game, Arsenal lost control.
They did?
Why? Was it fatigue? Or did Brentford just change gears?
A bit of both. But mostly it was Brentford realizing they had nothing to lose. They abandoned the low block. They pressed high. And they went to a tactic that is as old as the league itself. The long throw-in.
The weapon of chaos. It feels so old school, doesn't it?
Like we're back in the Stoke City days. But it works.
Oh, it still works.
It works because it bypasses tactics. It's pure physics. So 71st minute, Michael Keown launches one into the box. And this is where we have to get technical about the mismatch.
Except Vandenberg.
He was enormous in this game. He's 192 centimeters tall. He goes up against Gabriel. Now, Gabriel's a monster, but Vandenberg has the running jump.
And he wins the flick on.
He wins it. And this is the moment I want to zoom in on. Because the flick on is dangerous, but it shouldn't be a goal. Where was the cover?
This is the structural failure. Arsenal uses a zonal marking system. Usually, Jurriën Timber would be covering that back post zone. But if you watch the replay, he'd been dragged slightly central.
He vacated the space.
And Keane Lewis-Potter did not need a second invitation.
Nope. He reacts fastest. Diving header. Bang. 1-1.
And this is the key question. Looking at that replay, do you think Saliba makes a difference there? Or are we just, projecting his importance onto it?
I genuinely think he does. Not necessarily winning the header. That's a tough duel for anyone. But organizing the zone. Saliba is the voice that yells, "Stay wide, Jurriën. I've got the middle."
He's the conductor.
Exactly. Without that voice, you get that split second of hesitation. And in this league, hesitation is death.
So it's 1-1, 20 minutes to go, and the game just dissolves. It stops being a football match and starts being a panic attack.
It was end-to-end chaos. And we have to talk about the controversy in the 82nd minute because this could have changed the entire season.
The Gabriel incident.
Yeah, Gabriel is already on a yellow. He goes into a challenge with Dango Ouattara. It's clumsy. He catches him.
I've seen those given.
Oh, we all have. The Brentford bench is up in arms screaming for a second yellow.
Yeah.
We looked at the analysis from Keith Hackett, the former ref chief.
What did he say?
He didn't mince words. He said Gabriel was very lucky to stay on. He called it reckless and suggested the referee, John Brooks, was wildly inconsistent.
If he goes off there, Arsenal is down to 10 men for the last 10 minutes plus stoppage. They probably lose that game.
Almost certainly. And on the flip side, Hackett also mentioned an earlier penalty shout for Madueke that was waved away. So you have both sides feeling aggrieved. The crowd is hostile. The control is just gone.
And then the finale. 93rd minute, the moment where titles are won or lost, Gabriel Martinelli breaks through.
This is the dream scenario. One-on-one. Keeper to beat. Time seems to just stop.
And Kelleher. I mean, Liverpool fans must be watching this with mixed emotions.
Kelleher makes himself big. He sticks out that left arm. The reports are calling it a game-saving stop, and it absolutely was.
Martinelli has to score there.
If you want to be champions, you bury that.
But it wasn't just one-way traffic, was it?
Yeah.
Brentford had chances to win it, too.
They did. Igor Thiago blazed one over the bar from 6 yards out, and frankly, Mascara made a tackle in the 88th minute that was just as valuable as a goal. If he misses that, Thiago is through.
So the whistle blows. 1-1. Let's look at the deep dive stats, because earlier I said Arsenal had the possession, but possession can be a liar.
Possession was a massive liar in this game. Arsenal had 60% of the ball, but if you look at expected goals XG, Brentford actually won that battle comfortably. 1.34 for Brentford versus just 0.60 for Arsenal.
Wait, 0.60? That is incredibly low for a title contender.
It's anemic. It means Arsenal basically created half a goal's worth of chances in 90 minutes. They only created one big chance compared to Brentford's 2.
So despite all the passing, all that control, Brentford's caveman tactics, long balls, set pieces, were actually twice as effective.
Statistically, yes. And that is the worry. It shows that Arsenal's possession play without those primary creators was just toothless.
And that brings us back to the psychology. Arteta's post-match comments were really interesting. He didn't talk about the ref. He talked about his own team.
He was surprisingly honest. He said the team lacked composure after scoring and failed to keep discipline.
That is a damning thing for a manager to say in February. Lacked composure.
It sounds like he saw the panic too. When you are being hunted by Manchester City, every throw-in, every corner feels like a potential disaster. And Brentford, to their credit, smelled that fear.
We should give some flowers to the individual performances, though.
Yeah.
We mentioned Vandenberg.
Man of the match for me, an assist, 90% pass accuracy, and he won almost every aerial duel. And keep an eye on Yohori Moliak in the Brentford midfield. 95% pass accuracy against Rice and Zubimendi. That is elite.
So let's zoom out. What does this all mean for the table? Because I feel like some people are overreacting.
Okay, let's do the math. Arsenal is on 57 points. City is on 53.
So 4 points clear. If you just look at the table, you'd say, great, 4 points clear, we move.
And look at the momentum. City has just beaten Liverpool and Fulham. Arsenal has just stumbled. The lines on the graph are converging.
And the narrative shift is palpable. A week ago, we were talking about Arsenal managing a lead.
Now they are looking over their shoulder at a T1000 that just won't stop running. The psychology shifts from defending a lead to surviving. And playing to survive is the hardest way to play.
Keith Andrews certainly seemed to enjoy it. He claimed Brentford were arguably the better team.
And based on the chances created, he's not wrong. He's turned the G-Tech into the place where title ambitions go to die.
It really feels like a pivotal moment. I was reading the fan forums, and the mood swings are wild. You have the defiant one shouting, "We're still top," and then the doomers saying, "The frog is being boiled slowly."
That analogy is perfect. The boiling frog, you don't realize the danger until it's too late. City just keeps chipping away, point by point, goal by goal, until suddenly you're second.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with a final thought to chew on. We've talked about the Saliba gap and the long throw, but there's a bigger picture here.
Here's the provocative question for me. Brentford didn't do anything magical. They didn't invent a new formation. They were physical, direct, and they targeted set pieces. They provided a blueprint.
Right. It wasn't genius. It was brute force.
So has Keith Andrews just handed the rest of the league the manual?
Oh, that is a scary thought.
Think about it. Arsenal has a run of fixtures against mid-table teams, Wolves, Palace, Tottenham, before they go to the Etihad. If those managers look at this tape and say, hey, we don't need to outplay Arsenal technically, we just need to outmuscle them.
If that happens, that 4-point lead could evaporate long before they even step foot in Manchester.
Exactly. If the rest of the league realizes Arsenal is allergic to chaos, they are going to bring the chaos every single week.
A terrifying thought for Gunners fans, and a hopeful one for the neutrals, who want a title race that goes down to the wire. We'll be watching.